The most important decision a man will ever make is who his partner will be. These are words echoed by great men, men who built empires, led nations, and shaped history. I once read that the right woman can turn a common man into a king, and the wrong woman can turn a king into a peasant. It's a powerful truth, and one many of us have seen play out. But let's be honest, marriage is a topic that many men struggle to navigate. Some avoid it entirely, others walk into it without real guidance, examples, or preparation. And for many young men, marriage feels like a confusing, high stakes commitment that they're not sure how to make sense of. In today's episode of Forefathers, we sit down with Pastor Larry to unpack the realities of marriage, not the social media version, not the fairy tale, but the truth. We explore what marriage really is, what it takes for a man to be ready, what to look for in a partner, and if there's really such a thing as the right age to get married. Let's get into it. Pastor Larry, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's good
Thank
to
you,
be
my
here.
brother.
Thank you for the opportunity.
100%, 100%. And as we've mentioned, the importance of marriage and just some of the struggles that the youth might be facing, or even the elderly in terms of navigating marriage. So having you on the show is really good for us to kind of establish a foundation that they can lean on and build from, you know? So before we get into the crux of the conversation, we just want to know a bit more of your story. So how old were you when you got married?
So when I got married, I was 27.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And just still building on this question of age, there's a lot of stats that are currently coming out that are speaking about how men are getting married at a later age. So meaning that the age of marriage has increased over time. Do you believe that there's such a thing as the right age to get married?
You know, I've actually thought about it, and it's not really a certain age that you should be married. To be honest, my parents, they were married. Like my mom was 16, my dad was 22
Got you.
when they were married.
Yeah.
And they've been married now for 56 years.
Oh, wow.
And I actually still got both my parents.
What a blessing.
Yeah, and married for 56 years.
Yeah.
And the marriage is still strong, So I don't really think that there is a certain age or perfect age that somebody should be married.
Got you.
When you're ready, you'll know.
Okay.
Yes.
Got you. And still on this question of age, right? So we have a lot of, let's call them stigmas, to say, what are your thoughts on a man getting married to a woman that's older than him? Is that frowned upon? Is that okay? Or what do you feel? Yeah.
You know what? In my experience, I've actually noticed couples where the woman is older than the man, their relationship is actually quite fruitful and quite prosperous. I've noticed that the man actually, maybe in a way, he decides, maybe it's even subconsciously, he decides that, you know what, I'm going to actually do more than what is required just to maybe show my wife that I am quite mature and I am able to do more than what she thinks I am able to, although I'm younger than her.
I see.
So I think it's actually a good thing
Yeah.
that I've got two very close friends, and the lady is 2 years older, and they've got a successful business, and they also care pastors in the church, and their marriage is flourishing. So yeah, I actually think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That actually kind of like provides some clarity because most times, as I said, there are people who can frown upon this and say no, this is not a good thing. But I like what you just mentioned that in some cases that can actually be motivation for the husband to say I'm going to show up for my wife in this way and that way. So which is a really really good point. And I mean, you mentioned you got married at 27, right? And this experience has been spanning a lot of years now, right? What would you say are some of the valuable lessons that marriage has taught you?
Okay, one of them is patience.
Got you.
Because you need to be patient with your wife, and sometimes it teaches you to be humble, because your wife normally will tell you something that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Like your friends tell you something that you can like tell them you're wrong, and but because your wife is spending time with you, she is able to gauge, okay, this is, oh, I'm seeing this, and there's a pattern here, and then she tell you that, and then it will humble you to know that, you know what, you're actually right. So so things like that, humility, patience, and sacrifice, because there's a lot of things that you are doing as a bachelor that you're not going to be able to do as a married person. So that's also another thing: sacrifice and loyalty and faithfulness.
Got you. Got
You
you.
can't be
Yeah.
running around like a little boy anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah. So also then it's responsibility.
got you.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned that marriage taught you patience and sacrifice, etc., etc. Do you feel that as young men, even prior to getting into the marriage, do you feel like how best do you feel we can get more patient, get ready for that sort of sacrifice? Are we talking about going to counseling for these sorts of things to get these skills added into our toolbox? Or how best does a man then prepare himself to say, okay, I'm about to get married. I know Pastor Larry said I need to be patient. I need to get ready to sacrifice. I need to be someone who's responsible enough to be loyal. How do we sharpen these skills before the fact of entering the marriage and then figuring it out after that?
Okay. We actually, um, at most other churches and our church, we actually have a pre-marriage course.
Nice.
Yeah. So the pre-marriage course, actually, so my daughter is in that season now as well.
Yeah.
So she's actually doing the pre-marriage course with Pastor Sham and Pastor Kero. They are part of that ministry. And that course actually teaches you, they actually even, you're able to even ask about finance.
Got you.
So if you want to know about whether we should have a single bank account, you ask them. Whether we should be
That's powerful.
buying a house together. When should we buy a house together? And they teach you also about being patient, about that sacrifice, and they ask you questions to the effect of, how do you feel about living a sacrificial life now?
Oh.
Dying to yourself type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's difficult. So, and then that's what actually will prepare you. So I think those courses are very good. That and like you said, it is a type of counseling. It is a type of a psychological thing that you have to go through before you married, so that you're better prepared.
Got you.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think just to build on that, right, we are starting to see kind of your inside story of the things that marriage has taught you, right?
Yes.
And then for the young guys who are going to be watching and thinking to themselves, okay, now I know what I need to work on. What do we tell those guys? What are some of the traits they need to look for in their partner?
In the partner.
And the partner, what are we looking out for? What are some of those things?
So most of the times, I will refer to the Bible.
I like that you're holding it as well. I like that.
And in the Bible, there's the Proverbs 31 woman.
Yeah.
I'm actually the Proverbs. I'm actually open to it now. But the Proverbs 31 woman is the hardworking lady. She has to make your lunch in the morning. Maybe iron your clothes. I mean, it's like the man has to do his part. But I mean, it's let's say when you have children. The lady normally wakes up earlier than, not necessarily wakes up earlier than the man, but wakes up early to sort her children out, to make sure that they're fed. You know, the man will provide the food, but the lady has to feed them and make sure, you know, that all their stuff is sorted out. Then there's also Ruth and Boaz. You know, Ruth is one of the ladies in the Bible that she's actually also got her own book
Yeah.
in the Bible. You
That's
know?
powerful, yeah.
And yeah, so you know, we're looking for it's good to find a lady like that that's loyal also, that is that lives a life that is pleasing to God, faithful to God, you know, and that's gonna lift you up and encourage you, take you to the next level, you know, where you are going to be, where you're going to be nurtured even by her.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something there in terms of encouragement and support. Do you think sometimes we downplay the importance of having a partner who believes in you and your vision? How important would you say is that aspect within the marriage?
Yeah, I think it's one of the fundamentals of a marriage, because you know, once you both have your eyes fixed on the same thing, you focused on the same thing, then you realize that no, this lady, she's supporting me, and now I'm gonna support her. So both of you are walking together, you know, like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Basically, you
Yeah.
know, you're going to be, you can't work against her, she is not going to work against you. And that partnership, you know, it's the word of God even says, you know, what he has put together, no man can put asunder. And once you two start working together as one, you know, there's nothing can come between you. As long as, you know, with us, we say God is the third chord in a relationship, you know, and,
Got you.
And that when there's three chords, it's not easily broken, you know.
I hear that.
So it's a husband, wife, and God.
And God there.
Yes.
I like that. I like that a lot. And then now that we've broken down what the young men out there who are looking for partners or are going to look for partners need to look out for, what are some of the things that a man needs to develop within himself before he decides to get married, before you even think that, okay, I think I'm now ready for this conversation? What are some of the traits that you need to intentionally sharpen within yourself?
Okay. So you need to have a certain level of maturity as you know, getting to that age, and then you start realizing that, you know, the old things, is in the past now, and this is my new chapter in life that I'm stepping into, and I need to leave behind all the past. You know, it's like when you get baptized, the old man, you leave him in the water, and it's just like this now. When you're getting into the next phase of your life, you're starting to become a man. It's actually before people say when you're 21, yeah, you're a man. You know, even like Caleb, my son, just turned 18, and he say, yeah, no, I can sign stuff, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm a man. But you know, I think, in my opinion, once you're married, then I think you become a man, because now you're supposed to be doing the things that a man does, because then you become man and wife, you know. So that's when you become a man, and then you start doing the things that a man needs to do. So the man needs to be responsible, a man needs to be mature, a man needs to be a provider, a man needs to be there for his wife. You know, so all those things, you start developing it, and then you realize, okay, I've got these aligned now. Maybe even financially, you know.
Yeah.
If you could set yourself up, basically with, let's say, like you don't not really gonna need your wife's income, you know. Like, let's say you're maybe gonna need maybe 30% of her income, because nowadays, you know, it's cost of living is high.
Yeah.
You know, you need to not need to, but 90% of the time, the man and the wife has to be working.
100%.
So get to at least a certain level of financial stability as well, to prepare yourself for the next chapter that you're going to be entering.
I like that. And you mentioned a lot of qualities that are definitely essential to make sure that you're prepared for the marriage. And in terms of the financial stability, right?
Yeah.
What if we have someone who's at home right now and is watching and is saying, um, should I wait until I am financially stable, or should I go into this marriage with the ideology that we will become financially stable together? Is that a wrong way of thinking, or is that a thinking that can actually work?
You know, everything has to have a plan. So you can't just go into a marriage, hoping, unless you prayed about it, and God spoke to you and said, you walk by faith, you go into this marriage, but faith without works is dead.
It's dead.
So you're gonna go into the marriage, but you have to go with the plan.
100%.
Even if you decide, I think I'm gonna go into this relationship, and then you go into the relationship and you don't have a plan and a strategy, I think
It'll crumble.
And I think the relationship is not going to be as strong as you would want it to be, because like I was saying, you need to be the man of the house. You need to be that figure, of taking control
Of provision.
And, yes, and if you're not totally able to provide, and I think that the relationship might take a bit of a toll. It might struggle a bit. Yeah.
And I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, the next question is one I think a lot of men navigate as they're growing up and try and figure out, to say, sex before marriage. How do young men handle this in a responsible way? What advice would you give to young men within this subject?
So in the book of Timothy, Paul tells Timothy that you don't have to be married, because you can still you can do powerful exploits in the kingdom, and it's actually sometimes good for you not to be married, because you can do, at the moment you're doing such good things, and maybe if you get married, your wife might stop you from doing such things. But the Bible also says that if you have passion, you need to maybe get married. Don't let that passion burn inside of you.
What is this passion, Pastor Larry? What is this
I
passion?
think it's a male
The urges.
feelings, the male urges. But the Bible also speaks about abstinence. I know it's quite difficult, because the Bible says that sex was made for committed marriage. People in a committed relationship of marriage. So it's very difficult, I know. But the Bible, speaks about abstinence, and if you can't, get married. So yeah.
That's the only, so I guess to the viewers at home, you have your answer. If you are struggling with passion, then you need to get married, so that passion can be answered.
Yeah.
And I think it's, like you said, it's not something that's easy, but it's something that needs to be intentionally worked at, the abstinence, and having a plan to say, okay, this is what I'm currently going through. What is the solution? The solution is I'm going to get married, So I'm pretty sure that kind of clears the air for some people, and it answers that very tough question for the youth,
It is a tough one, yeah.
Yeah. And what are some ways that young men can be more, let's call it, disciplined or set those boundaries to say, okay, this is the path that I have chosen? What is some very practical ways of living out this life of abstaining from sex until one gets married.
Okay. So, the world teaches us about hookups,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to the nightclub, I'm gonna hook up, and this is gonna happen, and this is what I'm. But we need to avoid that. So we need to avoid those putting ourselves in those types of situation. The Bible speaks about there's no sin that is new. It's all happened before.
100%.
And normally, like when in that situation, when those types of things lead to a lot of stuff that the world is encouraging, like pornography, and people
Yeah.
are getting hooked on it.
Yeah.
Now the sex act and the hookups, people are getting addicted to it. The stuff that's going on, people are really there's a lot of stuff that the world is teaching that that is normal, it's good, but it's actually not good. That pornography addiction and we've been seeing even stuff that's going on our dear Facebook rapist guy,
Yeah, yeah.
all things like that. And
Yeah.
those, we're looking for those are the types of things that it leads to, because we are looking for those quick fix type of things and not, seeking the word on how we should be going about it. And if you experience something where there's too much of temptation, the Bible says turn and run.
Yeah. Run like Daniel.
Yeah.
No, it was
Yeah.
Joseph, sorry.
Joseph,
yeah.
yes,
Run like
yes.
Joseph.
Run like Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah, Potiphar's wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's powerful, I guess. Because you raise a very true thing. We live in a time where everything is hypersexualized.
Yes.
Every single thing is hypersexualized. So obviously, the main target for that is the young men, who are being targeted by the increase in, the ease of access to things like pornography, the ease of things to your point of trying to avoid these environments where it's a quick fix, and not trying to take a shortcut, because the whole purpose of conversations like this is to make sure that we give people practical ways and solutions of dealing with some of their troubles. And I like what you said in terms of when the temptation is highly intense, turn and run.
Yeah.
Leave that environment. It's within your toolbox to leave that environment, because, like we mentioned, it's something that's not easy. And I'm pretty sure that this particular question, there's some clarity that someone's received from what you've said now.
I also speaking about running, I also find a lot of, you can get a lot of release from exercising,
100%.
It releases endorphins. You don't go like it actually is good for your brain. Exercise is not only the physical, because you're exercising your brain as well. So there's a bit of an emotional exercise that's going on there, and to a certain extent, I'll say spiritual as well.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because now you're concentrating on that, and you're not focusing on what you shouldn't be focusing on. Yeah. So you can tell that I do a lot of running.
Yeah. A lot of running.
Just to get my mind off of a lot of things, and it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, the exercise helps.
No, thanks a lot for that. And I think now we're starting to get a better understanding. We've covered the qualities that we need as men. We've covered what qualities we should look for in our partner. We've discussed how to run away from temptation. But then what of the young man who's at home and thinking to himself, like, I don't understand this concept of marriage. It really just sounds like me giving up my freedom. And I really fear the likelihood of getting a divorce, because I'm seeing the stats. I'm seeing that a lot of people around me, the reality is they're getting divorced. What do we say to this person about what marriage actually is? Because they obviously have a tainted view because of what's presented to them is you're going to lose your freedom. You know how it is when some people get married. It's like you're saying goodbye to everything that you used to do. yeah, and the fear of the divorce. How do we paint a picture to this guy to say, look, what's been advertised to you is not real. This is what marriage actually is.
Yeah, marriage is actually it's not a jail sentence.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I know they make a joke of now you got a ball and chain. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
there's your handbag. You know, but
Yeah.
it's not that. It's more of what you make it. You know, it doesn't mean that you have to bid farewell to your PlayStation. You know, I know a lot of a lot of guys are really attached to their
Yeah,
PlayStation.
100%.
You know, it doesn't mean that you can't go to play your sports with your friends. You know, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to go to the gym. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to maybe go fishing with your friends. You know, it's actually absence makes a heart grow fonder. Sometimes you just leave your wife and you go and you let her have her me time because sometimes a relationship needs that. You have your date nights. They're gonna be nice. They're gonna be special, and you know at a point when you're ready to have your children, that's another blessing, that comes from a marriage, and I know a lot of youngsters, they say, you know what, I don't think we're gonna have children. We're not gonna be able to afford it in this economy and this currency of ours, and they'll make a lot of excuses about it. But I always find that God makes a way. There's always God makes a way. If you are prepared to have a child, God always shows up for you, and there's always a way out. But coming back to what you were asking me about being about a guy that's gonna be losing his freedom, you're actually not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not gonna be losing anything. You're actually going into the next phase of life that God ordained, because the Bible says that God, a man is meant for a woman to be married. They were meant to be married. So you're not losing anything. You're actually gaining.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think just to build on that, you're very right that there isn't a sense of freedom that's being lost. If anything, it's a sense of purpose that's being gained.
Yes.
Because now you are with this person that has your back, you have their back, and you have an aligned vision. So as opposed to looking at it as I'm losing my freedom, it should be a case of I'm gaining purpose.
Yes.
So
100%.
I think we're also quite unfortunate that the advertising that marriage gets is a bad rep.
Yes.
Very few examples of good marriages do we have out there to give us examples. But as soon as something goes wrong in a marriage, it's televised, etc., etc. So majority of the things that make it to the ears or the eyes of these young adults is the failures within the marriage. And I think it's quite good to have people like you who have examples of good marriages to also show us that, okay, cool, this thing is possible, if you do it intentionally. So I would also just say to the person who's, struggling with these fears of to say I'm losing my freedom, I'm afraid of divorce, etc., that you've only been exposed to this kind of marriage, the one that doesn't work. There's a lot of marriages that do work, that you can find and they can provide guidance.
And most of the time, you have to be intentional about making it work. Yeah, you can't, like just decide, nah, this is not working. It's not for me. I'm out. I'm bouncing. No, you can't. You have to make it. You have to try to make it work. Try your best. And most of the time, it works if you're intentional. Unless there's like abuse, physical, verbal abuse, then then you realize, what, this is not working out, type of thing, because obviously first you go for your counseling, and you try and work things out, because but that's extreme now. But marriage is not they say, not a bed of roses, and there's always ups and downs. There's always going to be some type of disagreement on something, but at the end of the day or after that argument is over, one of you needs to speak. There's been situations where people have been married and haven't been speaking for like a year or 2 years sometimes,
Yeah.
and they're just silent, So yeah. But you need to be speaking and sorting things out. Not You can't just give up on a marriage. Yeah, but like you said, we take examples from the good marriages.
Yeah. Don't focus on, the bad ones, the ones that
Yes.
didn't work out. There's this famous saying about how bad news travels the world while good news is still putting on its pants to leave the door.
Yeah.
Because that's how it just works.
Yes.
So I think we should focus on, getting the good examples and kind of using them as, motivation or inspiration to what we are trying to do as well. And a lot of times, like you mentioned, marriage is not a bed of roses, right? So what we notice is there's times when guys enter into marriage with these set of expectations. There's things that you expect a marriage to be. Are there any expectations that you, before you got married, as you walked into it, that you kind of expected that this is what marriage is, and what did you discover instead?
Well, it's. I actually thought it will. I actually thought that, like we'll get married and everything will be hunky dory. But I've actually found that it was actually me that was dealing with a lot of things, and it was because um, it was a new thing. I really thought that this thing will be simple and easy, but even in the first year, I experienced like, like what's going on now. This is so different from what I'm used to,
Yeah.
and I didn't expect it to be like this, but it's something that you have to work through, and your wife is there. God gives you challenges sometimes. I'm not saying she's a challenge,
Yeah.
but
I hear
she's,
you.
figuratively a challenge that God gave you, and these things we have to deal with, and God puts you through these things so that to test you, and it's a test of your faith, and it's a test of your endurance. It's a test of you being a man, whether you're gonna get through this or whether you're gonna quit. Because life is like, like we were saying, it's not every day is
It's a honeymoon.
yeah,
Yeah.
but every day is also not doom and gloom. It is, and life is like that. One day you up in the clouds, the next day you in a valley, and and that's the same with marriage. I also thought, we're not gonna fight. Everything is gonna be fine and dandy. But you're always gonna have some type of disagreements, and don't go in there expecting there's gonna be a bird singing at your window every morning to wake you up,
Yeah.
and your wife is gonna be giving you breakfast in bed
Yeah.
There's also some type of there's give and take in a marriage. Yeah. So I won't say I went in with high expectations, but I'll say it's not always as you would think. Just be ready for what God has in store for you.
Gotcha.
Be ready for anything.
And you mentioned something there in terms of how not every day is going to be perfect, right? And I was reading somewhere where they were speaking about how love is actually a choice. You have to wake up and intentionally say, I'm going to love my person, regardless of what's going on. Because there are going to be days where it's just messy, but you have to intentionally say that, no, this is my person and I choose to love them on a daily basis. You wake up and choose to love them, because it's not going to be every day to your point where the bird is going to be singing by your window, you've got breakfast in bed, but it's that choice and that intention to say, no, I choose to love my person.
That's it. Try whenever you get an opportunity, when you get an opportunity to tell your wife that you love her, it's always good, you know. It's brownie points. You know?
Some brownie points, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I listen to, I don't know if you heard of Angus Buchan. He's one of the preachers, one of the evangelist preachers, and preach to, you know, millions of people, you know, and, you know, his teaching is also, his wife's name is Jill. They're also married for a very long time. And he, every day when he wakes up, you know, he tells his wife, I love you,
Got
you
you.
know, type
Yeah.
of thing. So whenever you get an opportunity, like, you know, you, um, it's even they did a study and they said that men who kiss their wives goodbye in the morning, you know, they live longer.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so when you leave the house, you know, give her a smooch and say
Yeah.
you love her. And you know, I think it's actually good for the soul, even. You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's good for the emotional well-being of both of you.
100%, 100%. And I think we're starting to get the real picture of marriage now, you know, beyond the glitz and the glam, beyond the perfect picture that everyone tries to put out there, right? And let's say we've got somebody who is just about to get married or who's newly engaged. What advice would we give that young man who's about to start this new chapter with his partner?
I think just be patient, be prayerful, just keep it you know, leave it in God's hands, because He's got the perfect plan for us. Just keep seeking, you know, His face. You know, when you, the Bible says, ask, seek, knock. You know, just keep asking God, seeking God, knocking on His door, asking Him, and God answers. You know, there's even a song that says, "I sought the Lord and He answered." You
100%.
know, so that's you know, the best advice will be just to keep praying, you know. And it's good even if you can get a friend in a church, or a friend that's um, got your best interest at heart, to pray with you, you know, to, yeah, and somebody who's more mature than you, is married, let's say, you know, and speak to them. Somebody who's got a good relationship with their spouse, speak to them, get some advice from them. Even, you know, it's I don't know about Google. If you can do that,
Yeah.
I won't really advise it, but
Yeah.
you know, we always run to Google. But I think if you ask somebody for advice, I think that will be quite beneficial as well. You know, speak God
100%.
and ask, phone a friend.
Phone a friend. And I mean, in terms of how, you know, this person who's entering this marriage, right? We've spoken about how not everything is perfect, right? There is going to be conflict from time to time. What would you say is the best way to navigate conflict within a marriage?
Okay, yeah, conflict resolution. Yeah, you're right. There's always gonna be some type of conflict, you know. But that's the reason we get married, you know. There must always be some type of resolution. We must always come to some type of agreement. And you know, if you fighting, normally, you know, if you had a fight, don't go to bed angry, the both of you, you know. Always try and say, you know, it's my fault, even if it's not your fault. You know, just say, you know, I'm sorry. Let's try and do this way. Let's try and do it that way. You know, let's try and work with things. You know, because there's always gonna be some type of conflict. You know, there's always gonna be something that upsets you. But in a marriage, you can't be too sensitive as well. You know, sometimes your wife had a hard day at work, and then you come home, and then she, like today, you know, when I got home, and then I asked her something, or she asked me something, and then I didn't hear, and then she like raised her voice and, you know, asked me again.
Yeah.
I said, "Why are you shouting?" No, I'm not shouting. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we started laughing. You know,
Yeah.
and then it's, you know, it's you work through these things. There's always gonna be something, but and then straight after that you say, I'm sorry. You know, if be the one to say you're sorry. Even sometimes when it's not your fault, laugh it off and then say, don't worry about it. I'm sorry. And you work through those things.
I hear
But
you.
don't be angry all the time.
Yeah.
It's not healthy for your emotional well-being as well. Yeah.
I hear that. And you mentioned something quite powerful in terms of don't go to bed while the two of you are still, upset with each other.
Yeah.
Because now that anger is going to fester into something ugly because we
Yes.
haven't addressed it or we're still angry at each other.
Yeah.
And I was reading somewhere where it said when we get into a conflict within a marriage, right, we feel like it's me fighting my person. Yet it's the both of us fighting this problem, We're on the
Yes.
same team still, but we're trying to address this problem. But now when we are in conflict and I feel like it's me versus you, there's now a problem there, and I just thought that was something that was quite powerful.
Wow. That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
And just building onto that, what are your thoughts in terms of, how they say in marriage you should pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't just, pick your battles wisely. With that same notion in mind, what would you say to the husband who's been picking his battles, but instead is sweeping problems under the rug? We're not addressing things because I'm picking my battles.
Yeah.
So what's the best balance between that pick your battles and, not getting to a point where you look under the rug and there's 50 problems we haven't addressed now?
Yeah. No. Yeah, there's a difference between picking your battles and and not dealing with issues. Like picking a battle will be choosing a dinner destination. You want to go to Fire Room. She wants to go to Cream. Now that battle, okay, let's go to Fire Room.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
But certain things like let's say in-laws. We've got an issue. I don't like your parents. Now that's the thing. Now we have to deal with. You
I
can't.
hear you.
You can't say, what, you don't like my parents. Okay, let's just leave it at that. It's something that we have to deal with, and say, what, let's do something for them, or let's send them a message, or let's invite them, something like that. There's certain battles that you know you're not gonna win because but you can't be sweeping things under the rug all the time. You have to be facing stuff, the nitty gritty stuff. You need to be facing those things. You can't choose not to face those things.
100%.
Yeah.
And thanks for that. It kind of provides clarity, and kind of brings a balance between, okay, I'm going to sweep this under the rug, or rather, I'm going to pick my battle. You gave a good example in terms of choosing a restaurant. So I guess in terms of picking your battles, it means not fighting over things that are like minor, things that you can,
the petty stuff.
the petty stuff.
Don't
Yeah.
sweat the petty stuff.
100%. And then just moving on to, we've spoken about how, we have some people who have this image of marriage being doom and gloom, and they have all these fears, etc., etc. What do we say to the man or the young person who is thinking about getting married, but they don't have any healthy examples, any healthy marriage examples there, or they have when they were growing up, maybe mom and dad were not together, so they didn't see that example. How can they prepare themselves for marriage?
Okay. Normally I notice when let's say I have kids, and certain things were done to me that I didn't like. Those are the exact opposite things that I'm going to implement now on my kids to make sure that they don't, so that they are going to be they won't experience the same thing that I went through. I'm gonna try and sort of compensate for that. So when you notice a bad marriage, that's actually a good thing that now you know this is not
What I
I'm
want.
gonna do.
Yeah.
This is not how I'm gonna do. It's actually God has made me see that so that I can actually be doing the opposite thing and making sure that I'm going to be the provider. I'm going to be there for my wife. I'm not going to be the philanderer type of guy. I'm not going to be the guy that's always not providing, and all this will just try to make you. What I think is you need to keep the marriage a bit exciting. Don't be that guy that's always gonna be sitting on the couch and watching TV. In the weekend,
Yeah.
no, it's my time. I'm just gonna relax. Do stuff with the wife. Even if it means on a Saturday, go shopping with her. I know sometimes we gents we don't like that shopping story. It doesn't mean you have to go with her and hold her handbag. Just
Yeah.
just accompany her. And spend some time with her, and those things will actually pay off in the long run. So it's not so bad. It's not so
True. And I like how you kind of broke it down to say, look, you grew up without good examples. So be the example you want to see. Set the standard you want to see, for your children and for your community to see, okay, this is what a good marriage looks like. And like I keep saying, we live in a very fortunate time that we are exposed to the internet. So if you didn't grow up with these examples, you can easily go onto YouTube, search up a couple that you look up to and learn from them. You can read up on people that you aspire to be like. So we have so much resources and information that we can use to our advantage. And you mentioned something that I almost laughed because it builds onto our next question in terms of how marriage isn't only just about love, it's also about the growth that you receive from your partner, So what are some of the practical things or routines that can help build a strong foundation for this marriage?
Okay. Like I was saying, spending time together is quite important. Praying together also
Nice.
quite important. Making sure we have been trying to be consistent from even before we became active in church. We used to be attending church before. I told you like the first year of our marriage was a bit rocky. I'll say it was more my fault. And then after that, we started getting more actively going to church, more actively praying together and doing stuff together, and that actually helped us in our marriage to become stronger, to become closer. And then the first child that we had, Latavia, like I was saying, she's now 24, also brought us closer together.
Nice.
And then, we built on that. We thought, one child is enough. And then God said, you know what? I'm going to bless you with another child.
Amen.
And then, and then along came Caleb, that and both of them are now so actively involved in church, which we thank God for. And so I think, that's, those steps will actually lead you to carry on into a good marriage. It's going to be fine.
I liked how you said just before this that don't be boring in the marriage. You know what I mean? Be intentionally doing things like set a date night or whatever the case may be. Do things that you like with your partner as well. And I think that would be good because, like we said, it's about the growth. It's not always going to be the perfect day ever, but the intentionality and having a plan is what makes sure that this thing is sustainable.
Yes.
So, Pastor Larry, that actually brings us to the end of our conversation.
It was good.
That was really good and I enjoyed it. And to everyone watching at home, that brings us to the end of today's episode of Forefathers. A big thank you to Pastor Larry for sharing your wisdom and perspective on a subject that's so important and shapes so much of a man's life. If this conversation challenged you, inspired you, or gave you something new to think about, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, a brother, or anyone who needs to hear it. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below with your biggest takeaways. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. At Forefathers, our mission is very simple. Our mission is to ensure that we empower men with tools, conversations, and stories that can help us grow into the men we are meant to become. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, keep building, and keep leading. Cheers, guys.